Hello everyone. The story I'm going to share today is King Mu of Zhou traveled west to Kunlun mountain. King Mu of Zhou was born in 1027 BC. He was the son of King Zhao of Zhou, the fifth monarch of the Western Zhou Dynasty. With a 55-year reign, he was the longest reigning king of the Western Zhou Dynasty and one of the most legendary kings in Chinese history. During the reign of King Mu, the state was strong. At that time, the influence of Zhou Dynasty in the west had already extended too far away. King Mu also devoted himself to the southeast. Through traveling and conquering, he brought many tribes under his rule, which had a positive effect on the development of Zhou Dynasty. King Mu was the great-grandson of King Wu of Zhou, who was said to be so skillful to ride the wagon by himself, and his archery skills were almost perfect. His biggest hobby was traveling, according to extensive records of Taiping area. When he was young, he loved the way of the immortals and wanted to follow the example of Yellow Emperor, who traveled all over the world by riding the wagon and horses. Here, I would like to talk about the relationship between King Mu and Mount Kunlun. Mount Kunlun, with its upright and majestic peaks. Legend has it that the Kunlun mountain range is located directly below the heavenly realm of the immortals, so it was made into a sacred mountain by the earthly world. And here in ancient China, it was also believed to be a place where the immortals lived. On the top of Western Kunlun mountain, there is a Yaoqi, an extremely beautiful place where there is no heat or snow, and the seasons are as warm as spring. It is closest dimension to the human world. The Queen Mother of the West resides here. When the Queen Mother of the West knew that King Mu had the intention of practicing Taoism, one day he sent a messenger to invite him to Yaoqi and sent him a jade flute and jade axe to help him in his journey to the west. When the messenger met King Mu in his imperial court, he began to describe a beautiful place of Yaoqi. King Mu was immediately attracted and decided to set off for the westward journey immediately, as it would be better to see it than to hear it. King Mu asked the messenger how many miles would it take to travel from the capital Haojing to Western Kunlun. The messenger replied, "Your Majesty, it will take 180,000 miles one day. In between, there are 9 great mountains and 9 long rivers to pass through." King Mu thought, a steed can only run 600 miles a day. Even if the horse doesn't stop moving it, it will take 10 years to make a round trip to West Kunlun. Then won't I be too old? But then he thought, with effort, one can achieve anything. I must go to West Kunlun this time. At this time, a minister came up with an idea and said, "Don't worry, Your Majesty. There are 8 heavenly horses on Longchuan Island in the East China Sea, which can travel for 10,000 miles a day. In addition, I can also recommend a royal list. His name is Zhao Fu, who has the ability to drive heavenly horses. In this way, it won't take more than a few days to get to Yaoqi." Very soon, King Mu called Zhao Fu in. He was a stuffed man, looked extremely strong, and his eyes flashed like electricity. King Mu asked him to go to East China Sea to bring 8 heavenly horses, and when they were ready, they set out in full armor. At a moment, the messenger who came to invite King Mu transformed himself into a green bird and led away. King Mu had with him only a fierce dog named Hao, a dog with white fur. that had followed him for 7 years. It could run 1,900 miles a day and could devour even tigers and leopards. The 8 heavenly horses really walked like flying, only heard a wind whizzing by, and had already traveled 108,000 miles in half a day. In a few days, the 8 steeds driven by Zhao Fu crossed 8 high peaks, crossed 8 rough rivers. Ahead was the 9th high mountain, and the heavenly horse was galloping, when suddenly a monster jumped out from behind the mountain, with a dragon's head and shrimp's body, and 10 hands, though it had only 1 leg. Each hand held a stone weapon, and spat fire from its mouth, blocking the main road. The monster sang, "The road is mine, the mountain is my home. If you want to pass from here, leave 4 horses behind." King Mu was stunned. He was about to try to deal with it. The white-haired duck leaped down from the cart and pounced straight to the monster. A fight began. Both sides showed their skills fighting. Although the monster had many hands, but because it had 1 leg jumping around, in the end not as flexible as the dog. At last, it took out its most ferocious trick, moss fire. Flames suddenly smoke in the sky. King Mu laughed when he saw it, and it turned out that he had the ability to stop the fire. He put out the jade flute from his lapel and played it towards the flames. Suddenly, dark clouds spread out, and the torrential downpour attracted and extinguished the fire. The monster saw that he had no power to fight back, so he had to flee for his life. The last hurdle was the river of heaven, which rushed down from the sky and blocked the way. When the heavenly horse wandered away, the green bird messenger asked King Mu to put out his jade axe. He tapped the jade axe 3 times toward the crosswood in front of the carriage. Suddenly, a miracle appeared, and there were 999,000 big crocodiles lined up neatly on the surface of the river, connecting the heads and tails to form a pontoon bridge for Zhao Fu to ferry the cart across. King Mu finally arrived at the Kunlun mountain and met the Queen Mother of the West at Yaochi. He politely presented a gift of white and mysterious jade. The Queen Mother entertained the first honored guests from the east with peaches that had been grown for 9,000 years. At the banquet, the Queen Mother sang, "The white clouds floating in the sky, and the road is long and distant. Mountains and rivers separate us, and it's hard to hear from you again. Yet you will live forever, and there is a time for us to meet again." King Mu responded, "After I return to the east, I will make the nations of China live in harmony, make all the people equal and rich, and I will come back to visit you when the world is at peace." After 3 years, King Mu began to travel again, going to Leishu Mountain and Taihang Mountain in Shanxi Province before returning to Haojing, the capital of Zhou Dynasty. At that time, King Mu followed Yinxi and built a house with the grass on the trees. Later, when he heard that Xuan had rebelled, King Mu returned to his country to quell the rebellion, so that Zhou Dynasty was safe and sound as before. At the end of the story, I cannot help thinking the monarch of the Zhou Dynasty were virtuous, loving, and sincere. It's not surprising that Zhou Dynasty, which lasted for 800 years, was the longest dynasty in Chinese history. Thank you very much for listening to the story. More touching stories will be ready for you if you just subscribe it. Thank you again.